Hey, Milan.
Hello.
All right. Well, I'll kick it off since we're right at time and we do a stream now and there's people waiting. So, welcome everybody to the Octant October 14th community meeting. Today we're going to be covering a handful of topics. And hello, Sam. And we'll just jump right into them and then we'll open it up for any questions that people might have. So, with that said, let's see. Get the agenda up. There it is. All right. So we released ODOT 16.1, which we were going to do on the 7th, but we did it on the 8th. There was just a couple of small things that we wanted to get in there before we cut the release. So this is up now. It's in all the package managers. So if you haven't updated, recommend you do that. It's a good a lot of good bug fixes. We talked about them. We talked about all of them last week. So feel free to look at the change logs and send Sam a thank you for all of the bug fixes that he got in there, and also thanks to Scott Andrews and Josh Rosso who contributed a couple fixes to that release as well. Um, Definitely update. That's all I got to say about it. If you haven't updated, do it. It was a good release, a lot of good fixes. Um, any anyone got anything to add there? All right. So moving on to the ODOT 17 as an Electron release. So this is something we've been talking about, hinting at, then talking about, and then hinting at, and then talking about more. And this next upcoming release. We will be releasing this as a uh, Electron application. We'll probably still package the old binaries that you're familiar with for a release or two. Just probably twofold, just so that people get used to the fact that there's this new binary, but also there's maybe a precautionary in case the the Electron one uh, isn't isn't functioning on across all these various platforms. We are putting a lot of extra effort into quality assurance and controls and making sure that what we end up releasing for the Electron application is very solid. Um, Sam brought up a good point in a conversation we had the other day about, like, if we release this thing under as an Electron app and then it kind of falls on itself, then everyone's going to be like, why'd you even waste the time doing that? So we want to show the value there, and we want to get people using it and get feedback on it. So we're going to make sure that it's rock solid when it goes out. That is also part of the reason it's been so long waiting for it to get released. We've been putting in a lot of things in place, like new navigation, and building out the breadcrumb system and making sure that those things are showing up where they should, and to allow for like a good navigation experience when you're no longer in a browser. And so there's just a lot of pieces that were kind of being developed that allow us to now package this up as an application as we intend. Some of our hopes and dreams there are things like being able to have uh, being able to turn on and off system level notifications, so you can get like notifications right in your native events on your operating system. Being able to have Octant, down running in the background, whether that's pinned in a taskbar or down in like a some other area. Native menus and navigating through Octant in a more like native feel. These are just some of the things that we want to be able to take advantage of, and then we can, once that's there, we can start to get into things like a really good install plugin flow where we can actually like take you to the folder, allow you to install them, allow you to remove them, give you buttons that make it easy to restart Octant after you've loaded a new Go plugin. Show where those assets are within the file system and be able to easily go get to them. Things that are just really, really difficult now through a browser interface, which has got us this far, but now we want to take it to that next level. So that's just some of what to expect with an upcoming as we move to being on this like Electron platform. I don't know if is there anything I missed there, Milan, Sam?
Yeah, we can add it back to the issue later. I think we have a
old tracking issue 550, which lists kind of what we would expect to have to happen before an Electron release goes out. Namely, there are just some things that you might not think of, like for example, zooming in and out. For some reason, Electron doesn't come with that automatically, and you can do it for free on a browser, but we'd have to implement something like that. And things like auto updating, I think that's also something that we'd like to have at least some validation that it's working and in place before we ship that out. So uh, it's not just Octant and then we plop it into Electron. There are other things that that needs to happen before this ships out.
Yeah, the auto updating is a great call out. That's one that we're really excited about as well. Excellent. All right. Well, we will move on to the this topic I added, which is around plugin API. I just wanted there was a couple issues that were opened in the last release cycle that we didn't get into 0.16, but that I took note of that I think are really interesting that we want to get in there. Actually, I think the data list one was opened maybe even before that, but currently on the summary page, a plugin can only add a single tab. There's just a tab handler, and it spits out a response, and that response is the content of your tab. And I believe the Aqua Security folks were working on a plugin and had a desire to be able to split out some of the information they wanted to display for a given workload. In the summary view for it into multiple tabs, because basically the context for each set of data is different, and that made a lot of sense to me. I think that's a very reasonable thing that we want to be supporting within our plugins. So that's something that I want to get in there sooner rather than later, so people can start playing with it. Might do that as a point release to the 0.16 release if people are blocked by it, or we get more like, hey, we could really use this now. Since it's adding to the API, I'm comfortable putting it into a minor release, since it's not deprecating it in any way. But it also depends on how our tab handler works now. Like as long as they can call, like recompile and call the same tab handler with a single tab, and it works the same way with multiple tabs, then we'd be fine. If we have to change the API, then it's going to have to wait till 0.17. And we might have to. I don't know. I have to look at it more. And the other thing I wanted to call out was a data list component. And now, I'm saying data list because that's what Clarity calls them, but that is just essentially a drop down that's fed with data, and some of the items can be turned on or off, and it can enable things like multi-select within the data list. And right now, there's no good way for plugin authors to expose this, like especially like in breadcrumbs or things like that, where they might want to do sub navigation type things. There's no way to really expose like a set of components and or a set of links or in a longer form. And the data list is really nice because it also has the ability to say, like, when you click on this, it's actually a route. So like click on this and take me to that URL, which will allow for, I know the Jenkins X folks, they wrote a plugin, and the desire is in the breadcrumbs to be able to just have this data list component with a dropdown with all of like the sub elements that you might want to reference that aren't necessarily qualified to be like full on tabs, but they're just links or callouts to other areas within the system. It's a UI, like a UX pattern that they desired. So that's also something that we want to get in there. And there's a couple others, I just forgot them, and I didn't have a chance to go look them up. But we're going to be adding some new components and features to the plugin API to make things a little easier. And since we're talking about plugin API, before we started the meeting, Scott Andrews was asking about forms within modals, and other form things. And I was answering, I was saying that our introduction of custom forms and being able to render out your forms through your plugin and have custom actions and handle validation is all very new. And we just released it in the last 0.16. And it's likely that that API needs some use to determine what it's missing and determine like how we can better improve it. So to answer Scott's question, which he asked in the Slack channel, I don't know of any examples of using a form in a modal right now that we have live anywhere. But that's something I think we can come up with. Was there any more questions you had on that, Scott?
Plenty, but we can take that offline.
Okay, great. Was there anything about plugin API stuff that I missed that anyone wanted to add?
Yeah, there was one more. I think I forgot the component name. Not the graph, but the little charts. What do we call them? I can't remember.
Oh, the donut.
The donut. Yes. Someone wanted. Right now, we only have 3 donut colors: green, orange, or red. And I think the best way to go about it is just to, I don't know, like enable like. Actually, I haven't thought about it too much on what that should look like, but I think it'd be helpful to either enable a wider range of colors or just let them add the CSS for whatever color they wanted through some sort of Go interface or JavaScript, whichever one. But it seems, yeah, it doesn't seem like a difficult change, probably just another one that we are going to be looking at soon.
Yeah, I think that one also came from the Aqua Security plugin.
Yeah, I remember looking into that briefly. I think what we need to add is for each entry, we need to basically add a color and a tooltip description. So I don't think it should be that hard to do that, but I briefly looked into it. So yeah, I think it would be good improvement because there's a lot of cases that are outside of the, plain donut usage that we currently have.
Yeah, and I also I wonder about like long term, and this is something that I think Brian has mentioned before, and we've talked about briefly, but figuring out some way to enable, web like custom web components or custom Angular component or some type of custom component within the plugin in a nice way, whether that is a web component or it is just making the API around iframes better or whatever it looks like. Allowing people to get some of these more complex data visualizations into Octant without us having to build out an entirely new set of components to support data visualization. Like I don't think that's something that we want to do. Like, but we want to enable, we want to enable people to show these embedded data views within Octant. So that's something we're thinking about trying to figure out the best way to do that. I don't know that we know yet. But in the meantime, you can add enhancements to the donut. Is it a donut chart? Like, do they spell it donut or do they spell it like donut?
It's donut.
D-O-N-U-T. Yeah.
D-O-N-U-T. Yeah.
We're not that fancy.
I've always seen that in like places, right? There's like the donut shop, but it's spelled D-O-N-U-T, and then there's a donut shop where it's fully spelled out, and I never know which one's right.
It's basically pie chart, right? It's just a different taste. I mean, different shape.
It's a pie with the center gone. It's a donut.
Exactly. Yes.
Anyway. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, and this is something that we're moving on, and it was the documentation update. So more of a restructure initially, but then an update. What we're doing, also I wanted to say hi to Pablo, who's watching on the YouTube stream. Hey, Pablo. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so the documentation we currently have, some of it's out of date, some of it's in different places. Some of it's in markdown files in the GitHub repo. And I've said all this before. It's just not a good experience overall. Like there's some good content in there, but like getting to it and like finding it is not great. Like the way we navigate you to it is just, it could be better. So we're currently working on an effort to take our existing documentation that we have spread through various spots in the repo and through the octant.dev site and get it consolidated under a docs folder in our storybook. And I started that process. So if you go up onto our storybook, let's see, it's, what is it? Hold on. I think, do we even link to it from the octant.dev website at all anywhere? Okay. Yeah. So, it's, can't type reference. No, that Octant. I'm using the other machine for the screen share, so it's a little easier. So we started to consolidate this under. Oh, look at that! Look at that! Well, failing on their pre-checks. We started to consolidate everything under this docs heading, and all that's here right now is just like kind of like a Y and an installation. The installation guide styles are messed up, and that's my fault. They were working fine locally, and then when it got compiled up, it's using an override preview. So anyway, Milan showed me how to fix this. But the idea is we're going to take all of our existing documentation and get it compiled underneath this docs section. And then off of the main octant.dev site, we're going to relink to this and provide a, like you'll land there when you click on docs, and it'll just say, hey, go to our storybook for comprehensive documentation. And so all of this content here, some of it might get removed completely if it's misleading or out of date, but it'll just get migrated over to be nested under that doc section. And then we'll create a contributing guide for how to contribute to our docs, since they'll be in one location, they'll have structure, and there'll be areas defined. And then once we have that in place, which will be sometime this week, we'll start to define outlines as GitHub issues for the actual documentation that we want to build out. And I know one of those was already created. Someone was asking for like an architecture outline and overview of Octant. So that'll be a piece of this. We also want to create a contributor's guide for how to add a new component to Octant. That was something that I think Sam mentioned would be helpful, or I think actually it came from someone requested it from outside, and then like Sam mentioned it and was like, yeah, that would be really, really helpful. And then probably specific guides, like here's how you create, like here's a tutorial for creating a Go plugin, here's a tutorial for creating a TypeScript plugin, and just have like a specific walkthrough for each of those. So expect some better documentation coming. This is an area that I'm going to be focusing on quite a bit over the next like week or two as we get our infrastructure in place for building out the Electron application. I want to make sure that our documentation is there alongside of that too, so that it feels like a really good overall experience when you come into Octant. So with that, that was the main things I wanted to cover today. Is there anything else? Any questions from people watching? Watch the chat there a little bit, or anything people wanted to add that I missed? All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending, and we will see you all next week.